silent and just try and just be fully present just for a moment with us. And invite you to take a very deep breath in now, and maybe even raise your arms up. And sigh it out. And again. And sigh.
We have 2 people joining us.
Okay. In and out. And just notice your feet on the floor and the chair. Take a deep breath in and imagine that you're breathing in a sense of connection and a sense of inner peace. And as you breathe out, imagine you're breathing out stress. Letting it flow through your feet into the floor. Breathing in and breathing out. Breathing in, breathing out. Just tune in now to the sounds around you. Listen intently. Take your focus now to the top of your head and just do a body scan. In your own time, just moving from the very top, and wherever you feel something, just stay there for a moment and just notice it. Don't try and change it, just notice it. And go to every single part. As you breathe, step by step. And just become aware of being in your body. And become aware of having the privilege of being with caring people right now for the next 50 minutes. Just to share and to be together and to support each other through whatever we're going through. As we listen to a new topic today and a new conversation. And just give yourself this time. It's for you alone. Forget about emails for a moment. Forget about other people for a moment. This is for you. And then gently come back. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. Sure. I haven't had great sleep for a few days. I could have just stayed there.
Wonderful topic then for today.
I know. I know. It really. So,
and hi, Michelle, and hi, Joan. Nice to see you.
Yes. Hello, hello, hello. How's everyone else doing in terms of sleep? Has if you had to give yourself, say a score, it looks like Anna would give herself 10 out of 10. So like falling asleep is cool, you're staying asleep, you're waking up rested, you're feeling great. And then 1 being you're the walking zombie because you're not sleeping well. So where would you be on that spectrum?
You mean generally or at the moment?
Well, today as a reflection of maybe the past month. Let's use the past month as a guide. Heather, great. Carly, thanks. An 8. Anna, thank you. Sharon, Liz, Michelle. So there's a range. Thanks, Carly. Thanks, Joan. Okay, so there's a nice range, which is what I was hoping for, because we can also learn potentially from each other. And if there was anything that you would like answered around the topic of sleep and rest, what would it be, if anything? Because I've come prepared, but I'm also happy to go off-piste. So if there was a question around sleep, rest, feel free to type it in the chat or unmute yourself.
Yeah. I don't have a problem with sleep. I have a problem with keeping awake. So
Okay.
I mean, I fall asleep 10 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So I sleep the whole day, you know, and then I wake up and sleep just carries on. I wish I could be like you guys, you know. I mean, you're all energetic, and so I have to, yeah. So that is, I don't know whether that fits into this topic. I think it's about sleeping, not about keeping awake.
Yeah, it is. But I'm glad you said that, because we can always have an offline chat, or if we've got time at the end. Yeah,
Okay.
for sure.
Especially when you fall asleep in conversation, Fritz.
That's a bad thing.
So thank you for the question. Yes, we will address the one from Sharon, and then Carly around waking up for sure. We'll speak about that. And then Anna, the recommended amount of hours. And then Joan, oh, what a good question. The struggle with having time to rest during the day. And often when we think about sleep, we generally think of the time that we're in bed with our heads on the pillow and a duvet or blanket on top of us. And sleep is, you know, to sleep well, we need to live well. And that starts with the moment you wake up and open your eyeballs, like your eyelids. That's when the journey towards good sleep starts. And I don't want to spend a lot of time on why sleep is important, but sleep deprivation is probably one of the biggest contributors to poor health today. One of the biggest reasons why is because we are built to sleep a third of our lives. So as humans, that's just how we are wired, and we can't get out of that. So Anna, to answer your question, for most of us, 99% of us, we need somewhere between 7 and 9 hours of sleep. What's more important is the quality of your sleep. So you can be spending 10 hours in bed, but feel terrible and groggy the next day, because sleep is also about allowing the brain to go down from beta to alpha to theta to delta, and going through the REM cycles of sleep. So it's also about the quality of your sleep, not just the quantity. But generally, there's very few of us, very few, one person perhaps in this whole group, that can actually honestly say that they can get away with less than 6 hours of sleep. Because besides that, that's considered sleep deprivation. And sleep deprivation is a form of torture for a reason. On a physiological level, sleep deprivation means that you might have elevated levels of cortisol, which stays in your system. And at the moment, it's not about if we have cortisol, it's how much cortisol do we have going through because of the stress that we're exposed to. And somebody said to me earlier this week, we're all swimming in a soup of stress. I'm like, well, I'm hoping mine's like a gazpacho, because I quite like gazpacho. So if I'm going to be in a soup, so what soup would you be swimming in? And so we have high cortisol because of sleep deprivation. We also have higher levels of ghrelin, and ghrelin is a hormone that makes you hungrier than usual, and particularly makes you crave sugar. And then there's a very important system in the brain called the glymphatic system, which is the clean out of the brain, which is why when you have sleep deprivation, you can predispose yourself to poor mental health and potentially issues like Alzheimer's. So sleep is important. And I will perhaps, if you haven't watched the TED Talk by Matthew Walker called Why Sleep is Your Superpower, it's outstanding. So Sharon, yeah, I can see you agree. It's Matthew Walker, Sleep as Your Superpower. And Sharon, I know you also had a colleague that you shared the link to me of her talk around sleep, which I thought was brilliant.
Yeah, that's Vicky Culpin. Yeah, she's one of the faculty at Ashridge. Very good TED talk on sleep. So I'll just write her name here in the chat. You can have a look at that as well.
So as always, I think it's quite important to start with a why, because once you have a strong enough reason why, it becomes easier to think about changing our habits. So sleep is important. We generally need 7 to 9 hours and good quality sleep. How do we do that? A framework that I use, because this topic has been very close to my heart. I've always been a light sleeper as a child, through university, and then I did some genetic tests, which actually there's a gene that can tell whether you're a light sleeper or not. And of course they said highly likely to be a light sleeper. I'm like, well, yeah, I know that. That's why I have earplugs next to my bed and eye masks, and I've read about the topic. And I also, when I went through my divorce, I sadly got addicted to sleeping tablets because they were given out quite easily back in South Africa. And so I had to retrain myself. And even now it's ongoing. I go through periods where I'm fine, and then I go through periods where I get this insomnia where I just can't, for me, it's about not being able to fall asleep. A lot of my clients, they tell me that they find that they sleep fine, but they wake up at like 2 a.m. and then the monkey in the mind becomes a bit of a gorilla and they can't fall back asleep.
Just on that, Celine, it was something I've learned recently, was that often people struggle with waking up between 3 and 4 in the morning. They fall asleep okay, but then they're wide awake by 3, 4 in the morning. And that's when your body starts making cortisol so that you can be awake at 6 when the sun comes up. So as the temperature and the light changes, your body starts making cortisol at 3 or 4 in the morning so that you're wide awake by 6 or 7. But if you've already got a residual cortisol in your system because of your stress levels, then and the body starts making the cortisol at 4 o'clock, then there's enough then to wake you up and you're completely wide awake at 4 o'clock. And I've just noticed in my own life how direct the correlation is between stress and sleep. It's just a symptom really for me in my own life of struggling with stress. When I've had something happening or there's a big event happening. I know, Michelle, you've got a huge event pending in your life at the moment with this move. There's often good reasons. It's just there's so many things playing on your mind that's creating this cortisol. And if we can't address the stress, we're going to always struggle with the sleep.
Exactly.
It's such a clear link for me.
And that's where, so if we're functioning at a high level, like we all are, and we're high achievers and we're switched on and switched up and going all day. It's like we're on a highway traveling at a very fast speed. And then we come to the end of the day where we want to park the car in the garage, so take our bodies and put it into bed and stop. But a lot of us go from traveling at like 80 miles an hour to wanting to just grind to a halt. One time, like it doesn't work that way. Like you need to apply the brakes, right? And ideally you want to apply the brakes 2 or 3 hours before. But even then, if you've been high speeding the whole day, it can be very hard to slow down enough to get to a point where you give into the complete miracle and surrender that is sleep. Because it really is. It's the Dalai Lama speaks about sleep as a preparation for death. Because it's the most vulnerable that we are as human beings. It's something that scientists still don't quite understand. Like, why do we go and spend a third of our lives being the most vulnerable ever? We're basically paralyzed. We have no way of protecting us from the environment around us. And it's amazing what they're uncovering. I'm busy reading a book called Human Givens, which is around how they're starting to realize just how important dreams are towards, in the beginning of life, establishing instinctive behaviors. And then as we grow older, to actually keep us sane because of everything that we go through and what we think, what we create in our own minds, never mind what's actually coming at us. So a framework that I'd like to take us through today, because we can talk about the philosophy around sleep a lot, but for those of you that know me well, you know how much I like, let's get practical and let's try and shift a few things so that we can maybe meet up next week. And even if your score is 9.5, Anna, it might be a 10 next week. And for me, maybe it'll shift from a 5 or a 6 to a 7. And a framework that I find has worked well for me is this one, using nature as a guide. So we know that we have the 4 seasons. We have spring, summer, autumn, and winter. And for me, if we take the seasons and overlay them onto a 24-hour day, spring would be when you wake up in the morning. So from when you become conscious that you're back in this reality. And then there becomes a time where you're probably at your most focused and productive and working. That would be summer. You're a busy bee, so to speak. And then there needs to be some kind of autumn, which is the transition where you let your mind and your body know that you're preparing for the hibernation, so to speak, of winter. So let's take a look at spring and summer. I'd like us to start at the beginning. And then we'll have a bit of a breakout group chat around who's getting this right, who's struggling, could there be some learnings within the group? And then we'll take a look at autumn and winter. So very briefly, spring, if you think of spring and if you look at the picture on the screen, you'll see it's the start of like the day. You know, there's still mist on the ground. And I think one of the questions, who was it that put, when you wake up in the morning, how can you wake up and feel refreshed? Because often, like, we might have a bit of brain fog still. And that phase is called hypnagogic phase, which apparently is a very mystical, beautiful space. It's the brain is very receptive at that time. So what you think and what you feel and what you're exposed to can really have a strong impact on the rest of your day. And that is important because a lot of us, well, I'm hoping not us in the Resilience Cafe, but a lot of us might wake up with these devices. You know, your smartphone goes off as an alarm. And if you don't sleep with your phone on flight mode, like I do, it can be easy to, within minutes of being awake, you're answering WhatsApps, maybe checking your inbox or jumping onto social media, which, to Sharon's point, is just going to start releasing adrenaline and cortisol. You're going to start putting on masks and working with your ego, and you lose that beautiful sacred space of that hypnagogic phase where it's almost like you're daydreaming. You could still remember your dreams. And for those of you that dream or journal your dreams, or I'm intrigued by dreams now that I spent time with a therapist to help me understand the symbolism of dreams, and it makes it fun, but you lose that and you go straight into your day. So quite important to think about your spring. So how long is your spring in general? Is it 10 minutes? Because ideally it should be an hour or two if you can. So before you let the outside world in, if you could spend time managing your state, doing things such as, I don't know, a bit of light stretching, walking, maybe some mindfulness, maybe reading, but something that's not work related, it's a very beautiful time where you can ease into summer. And then before we know it, as we all know, you know, by 8 a.m. we can be answering emails and multitasking, and from one online call to the next, to the next, to the next. And what you do during your day can set you up for failure or success in the evening for sleep. So if you're continuously busy the whole day and you're clenching your jaw and you're tight and you're fast and you're running from one meeting to the next and you're drinking coffee, it's like all you're doing is stimulating your body. And remember, sleep is about surrender. It's the opposite of stimulation. So could you, like a professional athlete will train for a big event, could you train and create some muscle memory in your brain to help you rest? And this can be as simple as when you make a cup of tea or a cup of coffee, make a cup of tea. Don't stand with a kettle and answer 5 WhatsApps and make a call and go onto social media. So give yourself maybe 2 or 3 minutes every 2 hours to actually stop and rest. Or maybe you could be like Fritz. I know Fritz takes power naps. So actually have a power nap, or take 10 minutes to eat your lunch and actually stop. Because by resting and sprinkling the concept of rest during your day, it does help reduce the stress response, that sense of fight or flight or freeze and fold, and reduces the amount of cortisol in your system. So my second question around the second season is, where in your summer productive day could you bring in a little bit more rest? It doesn't have to be a siesta or a power nap, but where could you bring in the concept of switching off and not being stimulated by the external world? So I'm going to pause there. And I would love to perhaps create 2 breakout rooms so we can be 3, so that we're about 3 or 4 in each room. And we'll have 5 minutes to share. What is your spring like for you? What goes well, or is there maybe an opportunity to improve it? And what is your summer like? So your productive day. So this is from when you wake up in the morning to say maybe 5 or 6 p.m. So don't talk about going to bed just yet, but talk about those phases. Is that clear? Great. Okay, I will, there we go. So you'll see, and then you'll have 5 minutes. I'll send a note when it's going to close. Peter, are you okay to stay here? Peter, are you all right? Because I can't hear you. Hi, Peter. Hi, welcome, everyone. Did anybody, we were having a lovely chat around how Fritz was sharing how simply stopping for 5 minutes at a time in the day can help you solve a complex problem, for instance. So it's not a waste of time. It can actually save you time. Did anybody else want to share?
I just have to say, Anna just said something really quickly as our group was ending up, and she said, it's really good to start the day with outside air. So every day trying to kind of get that, having a coffee outside or just, yeah, I guess going for a little walk. But I thought that was really nice, like fresh air into your lungs. And
yeah. Well, Carly, the science now shows us that, and I just want to welcome Vicky. Welcome, Vicky. Science shows that you need to expose yourself to natural sunlight for half an hour before midday in order to get the right balance of serotonin and melatonin for the end of the day, which is quite a challenge sometimes in winter. Yeah. Vicky, no one's ever late. You're just on time. The only thing is you missed the first round of cappuccinos. And we were having a lovely chat around sleep. Perhaps another share before I move into the season of autumn, which is probably.
Yeah, I just thought Anna's tip was very good about, she sets her alarm. No, who was it? Ash sets the alarm every hour and it says, get up and move.
Yeah.
And so she's got this reminder every hour to get up and move and to do something different.
Yeah.
And then caffeine, if you are drinking coffee, can last in your system for quite a while. So it's good to experiment with maybe stopping caffeine at midday, just to see if that could potentially maybe be a benefit in terms of helping you to fall asleep a bit easier. So then hopefully.
Well, that's interesting. I mean, I take a cup of coffee just before I go to sleep, and then I sleep like a bomb.
Yeah, that system of yours is running on coffee, Fritz.
Well, no, I'm not really a coffee person, but I'm just saying that caffeine doesn't seem to make any, I don't know, perhaps my system works differently. I don't know.
Well, you get fast metabolizers and slower metabolizers of both alcohol and caffeine. And I'm a slow metabolizer. So
oh, I see.
Yeah, the phase 2 detoxification in the liver doesn't work so lekker with mine.
I haven't heard that for ages.
That means it doesn't work so well I've got this beautiful big project with a South African client. So like this week I've delivered 7 webinars and I've gone back to using words that don't make at all sense here in the UK. Like
Lekker firecracker.
So we've taken a look at the start of the day, spring and summer, and then this season. So the transition between summer and winter is so important. And I don't think we give it enough consideration, especially when we're very stressed and busy and working from home. So the line between where work ends is completely blurred now, because a lot of us are working in our living rooms or constantly at home, and it can be really easy not to switch off. So I often work with clients where we actually talk about tangible rituals that they could do to transition, because a lot of us would have commuted, so we would have traveled to go back home, or we would have driven somewhere, or there would have been an end to a work day or our last client meeting, and then come home through the front door. And if you don't have those transitions, it can sometimes make it difficult to actually stop summer. So think about, like, where actually would I say that autumn starts? Like, when am I winding down? And then in the guide that I shared along with the post on LinkedIn, and I'm happy to share the guide with anybody who hasn't got it, because I'm not going to go into the detail now, but what helps during this time of the day is to use your 5 senses. So not just the 4 seasons, but the 5 senses to help you stop the stimulation and start soothing your nervous system. So for instance, around sight, the less light you are exposed to before you go to sleep, the better, because that activates the pineal gland, and the pineal gland then starts releasing melatonin. So that can be challenging at the moment for those of us that are in the UK, because the sun's up till very late. So for instance, I've been drawing, closing my curtains, which are blackout curtains, about half an hour before I want to go to sleep, because sometimes I want to be in bed before the sun's gone down. And so reduce the lighting. And in winter, that's easier. However, if you keep bright lights on, it can also be useful to switch bright lights off and put side lamps on to soften the lighting. Perhaps even use candles like the Danish and the Swedish do so much, because that soft red light is soothing and lets the brain know, actually, we can produce some melatonin because we're heading for sleep. So that's sight. You can use the scent of smell. For instance, lavender for some people. Lavender oil has been known to help produce a relaxation type feeling. You could also think about what you taste. So having a habitual ritual, like making a chamomile tea or a red bush tea, and always doing the same thing in the same order as close to bedtime as possible. And how that works is if those of you that might have young children, or you remember when you did have young kids and they had to go to sleep, that routine before going to bed was so important. You know, take a bath, pajamas, dinner, bedtime story, maybe a song, a lullaby type thing. So there was like a pattern. And I'm not suggesting that you sing yourself a lullaby, although singing activates the vagal nerve. We spoke about that with Chantal Duchesne, if you remember, and humming. So you don't have to sing yourself though, a lullaby, but think about, what is my routine that I do that helps my mind know, okay, we're going to rest now. So that's sight, smell, taste, routine. Hearing, I'm noise sensitive. And so I found getting the right earplugs has been a lifesaver. So I use the silicone ones, like the swimmers do on the outside of the earlobes, because the others can hurt your ear canal. And I find that sometimes helps. It gives me a sense of being in a cocoon. And especially when I used to travel so much, and I will again, all different hotel rooms have got different sounds, you know, the aircon and the fridge and then the elevator down the corridor. And I found just having that slight blockout helped a lot. And then the 5th sense is touch. And this is important because we don't always give consideration to the fabrics and the linen that we sleep in. So do you actually like your linen? And is it a nice color? This sounds so silly, but is like your bed and your bedroom a sanctuary? Because if you're going to spend a third of your life there and will need to rest, it's a good idea that you spend some time making it feel like a nice, comfortable place that's free of anxiety and stress. So perhaps decluttering and having nice colors or the right type of cushions. This is quite a personal thing. If you choose to sleep in in clothes, what are you sleeping in? Because I've got a lot of friends that sleep in their gym gear. Like, that's a very mixed message to be giving your brain. You know, pop on your exercise clothes and then you're jumping into bed. So maybe get like the right kind of textures that you like. And then a part of that is also the temperature in the room. We know that we sleep better when it's not stuffy. So cool, ideally an open window. Even in winter, rather have a heavy blanket on you, and as dark and as quiet as possible. And definitely, along with not having light coming in to your eyes and stimulating your brain, is to think about these devices. Because not only do they emit light, but they continuously stimulate the brain, right? So having a digital detox before you go into winter is maybe one of the most important things to do, to allow yourself not to potentially see a tweet or a post that might be upsetting or get you thinking. And then hopefully, if you've done spring, summer, and autumn, it may make it easier for your body to go into that hibernation into winter. And here, once again, I ask you to think about, is my bedroom a sanctuary? Like, is it a place that I want to hibernate in? And if you find that you wake up in the middle of the night, you will only practice or go to your default of relaxing with the breath or meditating if you've actually tried it when you've been awake. So if you bring in mindfulness at the start of your day or during your day, it becomes easier at 2 o'clock in the morning, when problems can feel like mountains, to actually then do what Sharon did, you know, a body scan, or to breathe deeply. We've done a lot of different breathing techniques on different cafes. And then hopefully to not just hibernate, but to dream. Because dreams are, dreams could be a whole topic on its own around how important they are to create proper memory saving and even potentially answer questions and give us guidance, because dreams are the language of the subconscious. And we all dream, we just don't always all remember our dreams. So I'm going to pause there and going to create the breakout rooms again. And this time, let's take a look at those 2 seasons. So what is your autumn like? What's going well? And what maybe are you struggling with? And potentially there could be wisdom that we could share together. And then your actual sleep. Are you dreaming deeply? Are you feeling rested? Do you wake up at night? What could you do to create more of a sanctuary in terms of your bed and your bedroom? So we'll have 5 minutes for that. Excellent. And hi, Vicky. It's nice to, I feel like I haven't seen you in a while. And there we go. Right, who's become a sleep superhero? What are you going to do differently tonight, if anything?
I know for a fact I'm going to be in bed earlier than usual.
Good stuff.
I need to find a way to detox from my phone. You know, even in bed, I'll have like an audiobook on whilst playing a game. It's like I cannot help myself, and it's so bad. My brain cannot, like, I obviously have to go through the phase to stop it, but my brain just is constantly like, go, go, go. I find it hard to get to sleep.
Okay, so Cole Newport is the author of Deep Work, and he's just launched a book called Digital Minimalism, How to Stay, and he's got apparently the book's brilliant. I haven't had a chance to read the book yet. I've just watched him being interviewed, and he speaks about a 30-day detox program that he takes you through in the book. That allows
to do that.
Yeah, and 1,600 people were did it, and the results have been incredible. Like, I think everybody unanimously, better relationships, more communication, better sleep.
Yeah.
But he's like, it's all or nothing. It's kind of like the gut, you know, like we do a proper clean out and then we put back in the good stuff.
Okay, I'll definitely give that a read. Thank you.
And Carly reminded me, because the topic of the webinars that I did this week were all on how to manage the addictive nature of our cell phones. And some tips like how you can manage your screens and decluttering. And I'd be very happy to share that with you.
That'd be amazing. Thank you.
Yeah.
Celine, can't we have a session on perhaps this theme? I the other day, and I must just go through my mental notes again, and I mentioned that to Carly as well, that they say that the digital contamination that we receive, the electromagnetic waves, even if we don't look at the phone, but the phone is just there, is radiating electromagnetic waves that actually influence and contaminate our brains and so forth and so forth. Is there anybody who knows anything about that? And perhaps we can do a little session about that. I think that might be very useful, because all of us sitting in front of a screen and it's not only mobile phones, it's also when we are here in front of our screen, you know, there's a lot of electromagnetic waves coming from that screen, and the internet and everything, you know, it's here. And I think that is part of detoxing, isn't it, Celine?
Well, it is. And that's where the science of grounding, I think, is showing that it works. So when we go and ground ourselves, so the opposite of being in front of our devices, you put your feet or your body on grass and soil, and you spend time in nature or next to big trees. They can measure, you know, Sharon, I'm sure this is heart coherence. The heart will become more coherent. Your electromagnetic resonance between the brain and the heart and the gut will definitely be less erratic. I mean, I know that there's these new, very eco-friendly homes they're built in such a way that, like, at night, everything switches off. I think the most simplest thing we can do is not sleep with this right next to our heads. Start with that, like charge it in another room and put it on flight mode, and maybe switch off Wi-Fi at night. I know I haven't done that yet, but I've got some friends who are doing that.
I'm also doing it in the room next door. I never sleep with my phone. I just need to convince my partner to do the same.
No, but she said that she's bought an alarm clock. Or do you have another partner that I don't know about?
Yeah, but I switched the phone off completely.
Me too.
Yeah, I switched the phone off completely, but it's still lying in the bedroom.
Oh, well, if it's just totally switched off, then it's a different story. I thought you just put it...
No, it's completely switched off.
Oh, okay. Well, then I feel better. Thank you.
Yay, we just saved a marriage. And what about the topic of dreams? I'm intrigued, especially that there were quite a few of you that said that your sleep score was high, like you gave yourself 8 or 9 out of 10. And if you're at an 8 or 9 out of 10, I want to really challenge you around using dreams as a way to engage your psyche.
Oh, yeah, I dream every night, and I dream it I wake up a lot of times during the night, but then I continue the dream. And, you know, sometimes it's not finished, and then I just go to sleep again to make sure that I continue the dream. So, I mean, yeah, dreams is very much part of processing a lot of stuff. And,
I always have the most boring operational dreams. So the ones that I remember are mostly 90% of the time just processing all like day-to-day details. And I'm so disappointed in my dreams because I've always wanted to have these really profound, symbolic, deep, meaningful dreams. But I don't seem to have those kind. They're just like really ordinary.
They say that we must actually send you all the link. We've got a very good friend, Dr. Dion van Zyl in South Africa, who's a dream specialist and a Jungian psychologist. And he's just done a very good talk on dreams, and we could send you the link.
Yes.
But he says that I think it's only 5% or 10% of dreams are positive, about sex and food and all that. The others are all about anxieties, stuff that you're processing. And it's often to do with some emotional anxiety that you have that plays out because it's our subconscious trying to process things in our dreams. And we need to do that. You know, we need to work with things subconsciously. And a lot of processing happens then.
Exactly what this book is about, is how they're realizing how without the dreams we would go mad. Because of, you know,
if we don't remember our dreams, we still dream.
Yes.
Because that is the way that the right brain and the lateral part of our brain starts to reintegrate stuff. Our left brain, fragment, take things, analyze. The other one brings the stuff together. So that's the integration.
Yeah.
And if we don't have that, as you say, we will totally fall apart like Humpty Dumpty,
It's so funny what Sharon just said. I was on the phone to my best friend this morning. I'm organising her hen do, and she just said to me, "Oh, Carly, I had this dream that all my hair was falling out. Quick, Google it. What does it mean?" And I was thinking that's got to be some sort of anxiety if you're dreaming that all your hair's falling out.
Yeah, and the other thing about dreams is that it's often metaphoric. It's not literal. It's often so it's a symbol for something else. So it's got nothing to do with hair. It's got something to do with something else. Yeah. About loss or anxiety or whatever.
Sharon, because I'm conscious that it's it's 5:02, so we're going to wrap up soon,
Okay.
and we have 2 more resilience cafes before we take a holiday, which is not a lot. Am I the only one who's sad? This is where you all go. Me too.
I'm sad. It's been great. Absolutely great. You guys have been amazing bubbles.
So I don't know, Sharon. I mean, I like the conversation around the digital decluttering maybe as a theme. But what about, I didn't hear his name, but would your friend be willing to chat to us maybe about dreams?
Yeah, we can ask him.
Maybe before the end of July? We can see.
Let me ask him and see. He's really brilliant.
Dion from Sale, it will be great. I mean, he's done a lot well.
That would be great.
So I'll send out his talk in the meantime that he did. Fritz, can you send us that link?
Oh, what it wasn't it in Afrikaans? Was it the English talk?
I can't remember now.
It may not work.
It was in Afrikaans,
Well,
unfortunately.
Vicky will be okay with that, and Joan may not Joan. I don't think.
Work.
But we can ask him. He might have something in English on dreams. But it is just the whole physiology and what happens, the neurology of dreams.
Oh, he's so good. Yeah.
Very interesting.
And,
Okay, I'll ask him if he wants to join maybe next week or the week after. See what he says.
Great. Thank you, Joan, for that note. Thanks. Yeah, it's been really great I mean, Sharon and I started these at the beginning of lockdown. And she said, "Oh, are we taking a break in summer?"
No. I won't sign that off. No.
It really has been something to look forward to. So every Thursday it's been like, oh, I look forward to today. It's a good day today. It's like, small amazing gems of the week this hour. Fantastic.
Thank you.
Hey,
Well,
guys,
thank you, everyone. May you you're going to be going into autumn in about 3 or 4 hours time. May you have a lovely winter and sleep.
Thank you.
I'm starting summer now.
Yes, you are, Anna. You're right. Enjoy. Thank you. And thank you, Vicky, please join us next week. You're most welcome. Great.
Okay.
Thank you so much once again.
Thank you very much, Lynn.